Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring philosophical methods
Oh, cool.
using this presentation that someone sent us.
Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at how these methods are more than just academic tools. They're
Mhm.
powerful ways to think and approach problems.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at its heart, philosophy grapples with some of the most fundamental questions humans face, you
Yeah.
know,
You
about
know,
existence, knowledge, values,
yes.
all that good stuff. And they're questions that have captivated thinkers for centuries.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting is that there isn't one right answer in philosophy.
Right.
It's about exploring different perspectives and challenging assumptions and really kind of digging deep into
Yeah.
these big questions. So,
Yeah.
how do philosophers even begin to tackle these issues?
That's where philosophical methods come in.
Okay,
So
here we go.
these methods are the strategies or frameworks they use to investigate these really challenging questions.
Oh.
And in the presentation, there's this really helpful visual that describes these methods as tools in a toolbox.
Ooh, I love a good analogy.
Yeah,
Makes these abstract ideas a little more tangible.
for sure.
So, what kind of tools are we talking about here?
Well, some of the most common methods are logic, conceptual analysis,
Okay,
thought experiments, and argumentation.
okay.
And just like a handyman wouldn't use a hammer for every repair,
Right.
philosophers don't rely on just one method.
Makes sense.
They choose the best tools or the best methods for the specific problem that they're tackling, and they often combine several approaches.
Okay, so I'm already starting to see how this could be useful beyond just like, academic debates.
Oh, yeah.
So let's break down each of these tools.
Okay.
First up, logic.
Okay.
I have a feeling this one might be pretty important.
Oh, absolutely. Logic is fundamental to philosophical thinking.
Okay.
It's about clear, structured reasoning.
Mm.
It helps us construct sound arguments and identify fallacies, which are essentially flaws in reasoning that can lead to invalid conclusions.
Right.
So, for example, imagine someone argues that all cats are mammals,
Okay.
and Fluffy is a mammal. Therefore, Fluffy is a cat.
That doesn't quite sound right.
Right, it's a classic fallacy.
Okay.
While the first part of the statement is true, the conclusion doesn't logically follow.
Right.
Fluffy could be a dog, a horse, or any other type of mammal.
Yeah.
So philosophers use logic to carefully analyze arguments and make sure that the conclusions are supported by the premises.
That's a really clear example.
Yeah.
So it's about making sure our arguments actually hold up under scrutiny. It's like having a built-in BS detector for ideas.
Exactly.
What about conceptual analysis?
Oh.
That sounds pretty intense.
Conceptual analysis is fascinating.
Okay.
It's all about taking these big abstract ideas and breaking them down to really understand their meaning and their implications.
Oh, okay.
So think of a concept like freedom. We use this word all the time, but what does it really mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Freedom can mean different things in different contexts.
Exactly. So conceptual analysis would involve dissecting freedom,
Okay.
examining its different aspects, considering its limits,
Mm-hmm.
and exploring how it relates to other concepts like responsibility, choice, and societal structures.
So it's like taking a complex machine apart to understand how all the pieces work together.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how these methods could be valuable for thinking about all sorts of things, not just these abstract philosophical concepts.
Oh, for sure.
What about thought experiments?
Okay.
I've heard of those before.
Thought experiments are one of the more engaging tools in the philosopher's toolbox.
Okay.
They involve creating these hypothetical scenarios to test ideas and explore their implications.
Right.
So one of the most famous thought experiments is the trolley problem.
Okay.
Have you heard of this one?
I have heard of this one, yeah.
Okay, so imagine a runaway trolley heading towards 5 people tied to the tracks. You can pull a lever to divert the trolley to a side track,
Okay.
but there's one person tied to that track.
Oh.
Do you pull the lever sacrificing one life to save 5?
Wow.
Or do nothing and let the 5 die?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
I can already see how that would make you think about ethics and decision-making
Sure.
in a whole new light.
It's a simplified scenario, but it forces us to confront these difficult questions about morality, responsibility, and the consequences of our actions.
Right?
Thought experiments allow us to play out these scenarios in our minds,
Yeah.
to test different ethical frameworks, and to challenge our own intuitions.
Wow. So it's amazing how such a seemingly simple scenario can raise so many complex questions.
Mhm.
It really highlights the power of thought experiments to push us beyond our comfort zones.
Yeah, for sure.
But what about the last tool in our philosophical toolbox, argumentation?
Right.
Isn't that just about winning debates?
That's a common
Yeah.
misconception. In philosophy, argumentation isn't about heated exchanges or trying to win at all costs.
So how would you define it in the context of philosophy?
Argumentation in philosophy is about presenting reasons and evidence to support a claim or a conclusion.
Okay.
It's a way of building a logical case for your viewpoint,
Okay.
much like a lawyer presents evidence in court.
Right.
However, it goes beyond simply stating your opinion. It's about providing justification, using logic, and anticipating counterarguments.
So it's not just about stating what you believe, but also explaining why you believe it
Yeah,
and addressing potential objections. That makes a lot of sense.
precisely.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting because effective argumentation requires critical thinking skills.
Right.
You need to be able to analyze information, identify biases, and evaluate the strength of evidence.
I see the connection to those other tools now.
Yeah.
Logic helps us structure our arguments. Conceptual analysis helps us clarify the terms we're using. And thought experiments can provide hypothetical scenarios to test our reasoning.
You got it. And these skills, they're not just for philosophers in ivory towers.
Right.
They're incredibly valuable in everyday life.
For sure.
Think about how much we encounter arguments daily,
Yeah.
from political debates to discussions with friends and family, to analyzing news articles and social media posts.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like we're constantly bombarded with information and opinions these days.
Right.
It can be overwhelming trying to sort through it all and form our own informed opinion.
That's exactly where these philosophical methods can make a real difference.
Yeah.
Having these tools at your disposal empowers you to engage with information more critically.
Okay.
You can dissect arguments, identify fallacies, and determine whether the conclusions are actually supported by the evidence presented.
It's like having a mental framework for evaluating the information we're constantly bombarded with.
Exactly. And this ability to think critically is essential in a world where misinformation and persuasive rhetoric are rampant.
Right.
It's about becoming a more discerning consumer of information and a more effective communicator.
This is making me realize just how practical philosophy can be. It's not just about abstract theories. It's about equipping ourselves with the tools to think clearly, to understand the world around us, and to make informed decisions.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the presentation's emphasis on the toolbox analogy.
Okay.
Remember, different tools are suitable for different tasks.
Right.
So let's revisit each method briefly and consider how they might be applied in real-world scenarios.
Okay.
We've already touched upon logic and how it helps us identify faulty reasoning, but how might we use conceptual analysis in our everyday lives?
Well, I'm thinking about those conversations where you just can't seem to see eye to eye with someone.
Right.
Like maybe you're discussing a hot button issue like social justice or climate change.
Yeah.
Often people are using the same words but attaching different meanings to them.
That's a great example. Conceptual analysis could be incredibly useful in those situations. By breaking down key concepts like justice or responsibility, you can uncover the underlying assumptions and values that are driving the disagreement.
It could help to create a more productive dialogue by ensuring that everyone is on the same page about what those terms actually mean.
Exactly. And think about thought experiments.
Okay.
They might seem abstract, but they can be surprisingly helpful for decision-making.
Right.
Let's say you're facing a career dilemma.
Okay.
You could create hypothetical scenarios, playing out the potential consequences of each choice to gain a clear perspective and perhaps uncover hidden biases or assumptions influencing your thinking.
That's a really practical application. It's like using your imagination to test drive different possibilities before making a real-world commitment.
Yeah.
And what about argumentation? We've talked about how it helps us analyze information and form opinions, but how does that translate to our interactions with others?
Argumentation is crucial for effective communication. It's not about trying to win every conversation, but rather about expressing your ideas, clearly providing supporting evidence, and respectfully engaging with differing viewpoints.
So it's about moving beyond simply stating your opinion and actually building a case for it,
Yeah.
while remaining open to hearing other perspectives.
Yes. It's about fostering a more constructive and meaningful dialogue, even when disagreements arise.
These philosophical methods are starting to feel less like academic concepts and more like essential life skills. It's like we're uncovering a hidden superpower within ourselves,
Hmm?
the ability to think critically, to reason effectively, and to engage in meaningful conversations.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this incredible toolkit, but we haven't really been taught how to use it.
Right.
But now, by understanding these philosophical methods, it's like we're unlocking their potential to help us navigate life.
That's a great way to put it. And the beauty of these methods is that they're not static, you know? They're
Well,
tools we can refine and adapt as we encounter new challenges and new perspectives.
okay.
And the more we use them, the sharper our thinking becomes. It's like any skill right practice makes progress.
Yeah, exactly.
So thinking about these philosophical methods as tools for everyday life, what are some key takeaways that our listeners can walk away with? How can they start applying these methods?
Well, one crucial takeaway is the importance of just being aware of our own thinking processes.
Okay.
You know, are we jumping to conclusions?
Right.
Are we letting our emotions cloud our judgment?
Yeah.
Are we falling prey to logical fallacies? By simply being more mindful of how we think, we can start to identify areas where we might need to apply these philosophical tools.
So it's about cultivating a sense of self-reflection, like almost stepping outside of our own minds to observe how we're processing information
Exactly.
and forming opinions.
And once we've developed that awareness,
Okay.
we can start consciously applying these methods.
Right.
For example, if we're engaging in a debate, with someone, we can ask ourselves, am I structuring my argument logically? Am I providing sufficient evidence? Am I being respectful of the other person's viewpoint?
It's like having a mental checklist
Yeah.
to ensure that our arguments are sound, our concepts are clear,
Right.
and our thought experiments are leading us to genuine insights.
And remember, it's not about being right all the time.
Right.
Philosophy is a journey
Okay.
of continuous inquiry and exploration.
Mm-hmm.
It's about embracing the unknown,
Yeah.
questioning assumptions, and being open to changing our minds as we encounter new information
I like that.
and new perspectives.
It's about embracing intellectual humility,
Yeah.
acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, and being willing to learn from others even when we disagree with them.
Precisely. And that's where the true value of philosophical inquiry lies.
Okay.
It's not about reaching a final destination,
Right.
but rather about the process itself, the journey of questioning, exploring, and expanding our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
The presentation we've been discussing ends with a thought-provoking question. What is your preferred philosophical method?
Okay.
It's like inviting us to reflect on which tool in our toolbox resonates most strongly with us.
It's a great question to ponder because it encourages us to consider which method we naturally gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you find yourself drawn to the rigor and precision of logic, or maybe you enjoy the creative exploration of thought experiments.
Right.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's about identifying the tool that feels most empowering and most helpful for your own philosophical journey.
And the great thing is we can use these tools in combination,
Yeah.
adapting them to different situations and challenges.
Absolutely.
It's about building our own personal philosophical toolkit that we can draw upon as we navigate the complexities of life.
Absolutely. And remember, philosophy is not just for academics.
Right.
It's for anyone who seeks to understand the world more deeply, to think more critically, and to live a more examined life.
It's for anyone who wants to level up their thinking.
Yeah.
And unlock their full potential as a thoughtful, engaged human being.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into philosophical methods, we encourage you to consider which method sparked your curiosity the most. Maybe it's a method you'd like to explore further, or perhaps it's inspired you to think about a problem in a new way.
Whichever tool resonates with you, pick it up. Experiment with it.
Yeah.
And see where it leads you. You might be surprised by the insights you uncover and the clarity it brings to your thinking.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of philosophical methods, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more thought-provoking explorations of a wide range of topics.
Until next time, keep those minds engaged and those philosophical toolkits handy.